So a few months ago, we conducted a survey where we wanted to find out how companies are actually engaging in some of the technologies and topics covered in this conference. In particular, we wanted to see deep learning being one of the models or one of the methods that has led to the resurgence and interest in AI. To what extent are companies starting to think about deep learning? So what we found is at least over half of the companies already have serious plans to use deep learning in the future. But as many of you know, AI is much more than deep learning. In fact, our closing keynote this morning is from one of the leading researchers in Bayesian methods. And yesterday, we had a very popular tutorial on reinforcement learning, and we'll have a few more sessions on RL over the next few days.
Yeah, deep learning remains a very popular research topic, and one measure of that is the number of publications that come out on arXiv related to deep learning. But one thing we noticed in particular is recently there have been a lot more terms associated with these works that are in particular associated with deep reinforcement learning. Now, one thing to remember, though, is that some of the best breakthroughs actually combine several methods. For example, some of the breakthroughs last year in automating the game of Go or automating the game of poker actually combined multiple techniques related to AI and deep learning.
Now, many of the data scientists here are very, very comfortable using methods in supervised and unsupervised learning. I think reinforcement learning is a little newer. So one way to describe it is it occurs in the context of an agent exploring an environment. So what you're trying to do is learn a policy for how that agent will behave in that environment. So if you think of it that way, you can imagine many, many applications that open up when you add reinforcement learning to your toolkit.
So of course, reinforcement is not without its own challenges. As we all know, deep learning is pretty data hungry. Deep reinforcement learning is arguably even more data hungry. In addition, a lot of the recent breakthroughs really came through cutting edge research in academia, so it's going to take some time to translate some of that academic work into industry. But we're seeing some really promising stuff, really promising developments, for example, out of the RISE lab and Array framework. So we think some exciting things are around the corner for industrial translation. And that's not to say that RL isn't already making industrial impact. So for example, Mark Hammond of Bonsai, one of our speakers at this conference, will spend some time talking about how their company has actually already deployed some RL solutions for industrial automation applications. And if you recall, Google and other folks have done some great work also applying RL to improve energy efficiency of infrastructure, for example, energy efficiency of data centers.
Let's talk a little bit about automation. So I think many of us sometimes think of automation as a binary. Either you're doing automation or you're not. But the reality is automation occurs on a spectrum. So for example, in the self-driving car industry, they have very well-defined levels of automation. And it's only at that highest level, the fifth level, that full automation occurs. So what that means for you as you navigate over the next few days, the sessions in this conference, try to evaluate whether some of these methods are already at that stage where some of the tasks in your companies, so some of the workflows may already lend themselves to being partially automated.
One area within enterprise where we're seeing adoption already is within IT and software development. That's no surprise because engineers are really good at leveraging technology to make their jobs easier, make work more efficient. In particular, we're seeing lots of interesting things related to applying AI to database management. And we actually have Tim Kraska from MIT here who will speak to that during this conference. We've also seen AI applied towards automating discovery of learning architectures and even towards writing bug-free software code. Another area that we've seen lots of interest in applications is towards conversational commerce and interaction with customers through chatbots. Now, there's a lot to be done still, but we're excited for what's going to happen and what's right around the corner in a few years as we solve some of the challenging natural language problems that face us in this space.
So as Roger alluded to, progress in many of these applications rely on some basic building blocks. So with chatbots, that means natural language generation and natural language understanding. Anything that needs manual labor will need more progress in robotics and sensory perception, among other things.
And let's not forget, but really we need all three pillars in order to make AI work. We need large models in order to automate complex tasks, but we also need big data in order to train it, and large compute in order to have the computational resources to train it as well.
So with that said, the AI systems of today may look quite different from the AI systems in the future. So last year at this conference, we had two keynote speakers, Josh Tannenbaum of MIT and Dave Ferrucci of Elemental Cognition. They both described systems that used deep learning, but combined it with some domain knowledge, some structure. And the end result being that their systems relied on less data. And that interest in alternative approaches has continued over the last year. And what's become clear is that progress will rely on a multidisciplinary approach.
The exciting news is we have lots of tools and techniques right around the corner. That includes those coming around in software, but also new developments with hardware that's custom tailored towards handling deep learning workloads. And something that's often underappreciated that we'd like to reemphasize too is the importance of the new paradigm for UX and design for these AI-based products. And as these new primitives come online for AI, we're just really excited to see what sorts of intelligence stacks will exist.
So, which brings me back to that survey I referenced at the start of this talk. So the main bottleneck that we found was lack of skilled people. And actually, that's why we started this conference with 2 days of training and a day of tutorials. And there will be a lot of opportunities for you to interface with speakers, but also with your peers. So make sure you take advantage of all the networking opportunities at this conference, including an application called Braindate.